Hello, hello, hello. Awesome. Thank you, Jesse. No, I think it'll be fine. Morning, church. Morena. Pehea ana koutou, how are you all? Yeah, we got some people. Ka pai. Tēnā koutou katoa, e pai kiti o koutou. Nau mai ki a tātou, te whānau o te hāhi, anō ki a tātou ngā waiwai tapu, ko tērā te kupu. Te waiwai tapu ki roto i a mātou, nau mai hoki mai, whakatau mai. Just greetings to everyone. Great to have all of our family here in the church today and all of those that are new. I don't see too many new people, but I think there might be a couple. Welcome to church today. Great to have you all here. What a time of worship, eh? And I'm not just saying that because I'm the one that was up here, but there's something really special about worshiping as a body. You know, like we may be up here on stage leading, but it really brings a whole new depth to worship when we have all of you here too, and we get to hear all of your voices coming in, and you know, it really does make a big difference. So if you've ever wondered if we hear you, yes we do. Don't let that frighten you from singing those. So all those bung notes, throw them out there, because it's really about the heart of worship. So today, what I wanted to bring today is to kind of recap on a couple of things that have happened, and I know that can be kind of a hard thing when you hear recap. Dad brings it up sometimes. I'm like, not again. We've had 3 recaps over the last few weeks, but no. There's some real key things that have come out over the last month and a half, and so I wanted to touch on those points and kind of wrap them into, I guess, a practical outlet, I guess. I work at Te Wānanga, so part of my job is I am the lead lecturer for the health and wellbeing course there, and part of my role is we're always questioned and kind of surveyed, I guess, on our theory to practice, because we're teaching students about the theory of certain principles and how they can be applied and what the purpose is. So we look at the body and the exercise and going, okay, well, these are the energy systems that we use, and teaching them the science behind it, but then it's the application of how do you use this knowledge actually out there in practice. And that's a really important part of what we do here in church as well, is that throughout the week and here on Sundays, you get given a lot of theory, but it's up to you to actually put that into practice and practice it. But sometimes it can be hard to take that theory and go, how do I apply it in actuality? How do I apply it in my daily walk? And so today, hopefully, we're going to go through a couple of things of what you guys can do to put some things in practice that have been mentioned over the last month and a half. Ka pai? Yeah? We're good? We're awake? Okay, I'm going to get you guys a little bit more involved today, because again, that's what I do. That's what I do as a teacher. If I see that students are starting to get a little bit, we're just hearing him talk, then I'm going to get you guys involved. So look energetic, and I won't pick on you. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, so we're going to go through. Oh, I got to make sure I turn that on. Jesse, can you just click on the presentation for me, just to make sure that we're live? If you can go to the next slide, because there should be a blank one to start with. Yes, there we go. Cool. Recap. We already mentioned that. And I'm just going to check, is this working? No. Okay, I might just say if you can click for me, Jesse. Technical difficulties, they always come up. You practice, and then it's like, we're not plugged in. We good? Good, one moment. Okay, so we're going to go through the recap. The reason I chose the ocean there is it's just a really nice place to go and reflect. I don't know about you, but there's certain areas of life, certain places where you can find reflection. For me, thank you. For me, one is the ocean. I go there sometimes, very rarely, because I don't like sand. But I know. It just gets everywhere, and then it's like you can't get it out. So don't like sand, but I do love the ocean. Another place is the Maunga, but haven't been up there for a while. The other place is mowing lawns. I love mowing lawns and just going out there and just doing a monotonous job, and then you can kind of just reflect on things. But reflection or recapping is a really important part of our journey as Christians, recapping over information that's been given and then seeing whether we have applied that or not. So just quickly, over the last month and a half, we've had Josh come and talk to us about the armor of God and the importance of the armor of God, and looking at it from the perspective of somebody that's been in the army, and then giving a bit of a modern day take on the armor of God. And this is a topic that we'll all be familiar with as Christians, so I'm not going to recap over what they are, but just to touch on the importance of armor, the importance of, sword of the Spirit, shield of faith, all of those ones, and what their importance to us in the Christian journey. Following on from Josh's, we had Trish come in and talking about building generationally. I think you might have had another topic, but that was the key thing that I took. It was about God builds generationally. And then where we're going to go today is we're going to kind of tie all of this together in a way, and hopefully it works. Who knows, the Spirit might lead me somewhere else, but that's the plan. And then over the last 3 weeks, I think that Dad's been here, he's been talking about PPE, which came from Josh's sermon on the armor of God. PPE stands for prayer, praise, and evangelism. If we're talking about it in a current context, PPE talks about personal protective equipment. And he's been hammering that home, that we're supposed to be in prayer, praise, and evangelism, that these are things that are actions of a Christian or of a believer, and things we're going to be moving into. So that's kind of the recap over the last month. Those are the key topics, and then hopefully as we move through, this is going to make a bit more sense. So the topic that I chose for today was be ready. Be ready. And it's like, we're getting to the end of the year, and it's the last thing I wanted to hear, because I'm like, no, or actually I am. I'm ready for a holiday. It's been a long year. I don't know about anybody else here, but the year has been a really long year. Hard year, lots of things that have come up in it, and I'm just ready for a break. Last week of work, I was checked out. I was just like, I don't have any energy left to give. And then people were coming up, they're like, oh, we've got this for next year, and we've got this for next year, and this is coming up. And when you get back in January, and I'm like, I don't want to know anything about January. Like, I'm just wanting to go on holiday and have a break, just to kind of refresh and re-energize so I can actually think about next year. But all of this stuff was happening, and I was like, okay, cool. And then managed to get all the work done, and then I was like, okay, I've got time to prepare my sermon for this weekend. And so I was like, okay, preparing, got the message, but didn't have kind of what the overall context of it was. Kind of went this way and that way, and I was like, God, what's the thing? And so last night, as I was going through my last bit of preparation, he said, be ready. And I was like, there's things that hit your heart, and it's like, I don't want to be ready yet. Like, I just want a break. So anyway, this is what I felt that God wanted to talk to you all about today, and maybe it's more to me than to all of you, but who knows. So be ready. So where I'm going to take you today is to the story of David. So we're going to go back in time a little bit. We're going to look at the story of David quickly. I'm going to give a quick rundown. We're going to go through a little bit of the scripture there as well that I felt was pertinent to today. And then we're going to move into 3 key areas that I feel you need to address in order to be ready. Okay? We're good? Cool. Okay. So, 1 Samuel 16 and 17 is the beginning of the story of David leading up to his battle with Goliath. So in chapter 16, we're not going to go through all of that, but I'm going to give you a quick recap for those that don't know or not familiar with it. In Samuel 16, Samuel was looking for the new king, and he goes to Jesse's house, and Jesse brings all of his sons in front of him, and he goes, nope. And he goes, do you have any other sons? And Jesse said, yes, I have one more son, and he's out taking care of the sheep. And so that's kind of where the story starts about David. David gets brought in, God says, that's the one. Samuel anoints him, and then Samuel goes off and does his thing, and David gets kicked back out the door to go take care of the sheep, and that's all we hear for a little while. Later on in the chapter, Saul starts being troubled, I guess is a word for it. And so he's looking for somebody they're looking for somebody to play the lyre. It's an instrument to kind of bring peace and get rid of that spirit. And so one of Saul's servants says, I know of somebody who plays the lyre really well. He's also a warrior and a good man. His name's David, son of Jesse, and the Lord is with him. And so they went and got David. David came in, played the lyre, and Saul's spirit was rested. And so David went back and forth between the king's palace, playing for Saul, and his job of shepherding. And then what happens is that the Philistines come to attack Israel. Yep, Jews. Yep, I'm like struggling here. The Israelites, thank you. I was like, I'm struggling with the name. I was like, I know it's there. To attack the Israelites, all the men go off to war, and David is left at home with his dad. His brothers all are fighting. And so that's kind of where we get to in chapter 17. Okay, so you're all with me so far? This is just kind of setting the context, and then we're going to kind of pull from the story a little bit as we move through. So we're at the point where David is still a shepherd out in his father's house. His brother's been off fighting for a while, and so his dad goes, hey, they're camped up here. I want you to take some food out to them. So he gives David some food. David loads up his donkey, makes sure his sheep are taken care of with another shepherd, and he goes out to the place where the battlefields are drawn up and the battle lines are drawn up, rocks up into the camp, and here's the Philistine, and he's like, what's all this? What's happening? And his brother's like, stay out of it, you little, you don't have any place here. You're not part of the army. Get out of it. And anyway, he ends up in Saul's tent, and this is where we're going to pick up the story a little bit. But David said to Saul, so this is verse 34, 35. If you want to go through the whole story, go through Samuel 17, chapter 17, 1 Samuel chapter 16 and 17. But we're going to pick it up at 34. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. Okay, that's really important for later. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it and struck it and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. Kapai, so we've got a really, confident person here, but he's confident because of something he has done in the past, but also confident in the knowledge of who God is for him. Okay, and we're going to come back to this a little bit more and hopefully make a little bit more sense in the practicality of it. Once David's gone through this, Saul sees this confidence, and then he's like, okay, yes, I agree to you going to fight. We're going to give you some armor, okay? And then this is what happens. So then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put on a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened his sword over the tunic and tried walking around, okay? Because he was not used to them. And then this goes on a little bit further, and he says, I cannot go in these, he said to Saul, because I am not used to them. So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of a shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Cool, and there's a whole lot of stuff within this story. You can go back through the historical context, about who Saul was and the tribe he was from and the importance of the sling. There's so much within the story, and it's really, really cool. But what I wanted to focus on today were 3 things, 3 key things that I felt were pertinent to me at this point in time, but also an encouragement for you guys as well, something to work towards. The first point that I wanted to go over is preparation. So preparation is a really important part of anything. It's an important part of our life as Christians. But going back to the conversations that we've had from Josh and Dad about PPE, personal protective equipment, your prayer, praise, evangelism, and your armor of God, if you don't know how to use your equipment, you are going to be very poor when it comes time for battle. And so preparation is really key. Preparation isn't just a matter of getting to know your equipment. It is, but it's also the physical side to it as well. Understanding that you yourself have to be ready. You have to be eating well. You have to be training. Because if you're unfit, even if you know your armor, you put it on and start walking little ways and I've been a sports person for a long, long, long time. Since I was little, I love sports. And so I've always been involved in sports. But as you get older, you tend to not be doing as much physical stuff. At least for me in my work, I'm in an office job. And so what happens is you tend to lose some things, but you're not aware of it at the time. I'm still only young, still only 30. And so the other day we went to the beach with our music team just to kind of break up for the year. And then I got challenged by my little brothers to a race. And I was like, nah, I'm all good. And then everyone made a big deal of it. They're like, nah, you should race him, because they all wanted to see me lose. And I was like, nah. And then so Susanna was like, oh, fine, I'll race you. So I was like, ooh, that's a little bit closer to home. Okay then. And so in my brain, I'm still like, you know what? Yeah, I can run. I'll be fine. We'll get it. So got up to the line, took off, beat Susanna. So I was like, yes. And then Shyla and Anya saw us racing, and then they were like, oh, I'm faster than him. I'll race him. So I was like, oh no. So I got Anya and Shyla, and I was like, wait, give me a moment, I need to catch my breath. Had a moment, caught my breath, and then raced them, and I won again. I was like, sweet, now I've got this. And so both my brothers were still like, well, you've raced them, you've got to race us now. So up come Jed and Jesse, and I was like, okay, I got this. Took off and seen both of them fall behind my side view, and I was like, yes. And then next minute I just see Jesse going, meow. And then Jed's like right in my eye level. I'm like, no, I can't lose to my little brother. And I beat Jed. But the thing was, after that, none of them knew it, and I wouldn't have told anyone, but my hamstrings were so sore. And the thing that came through my mind when I was trying to keep Jed behind me is, when you've had an injury and you know what it feels like. I was feeling my hamstring that whole time, and I was like, oh, it's going to pop, it's going to pop, it's going to pop. Luckily for me, it didn't. But the thing is, with preparation, is that I haven't done any running for a long time. If I had prepared well, I probably could have done a little bit better. Lucky for me, I have a bit of a knowledge base, and so unknown to my brothers or anybody else that I raced, I was looking on the sand and I picked the hardest track. I picked the track that had no footprints or anything else, so there's no stumbling issues. And when we set, I made sure that I dug my feet in so I could push off. So there's a bit of a knowledge understanding there too. So I was like, if they had their technique, I probably would have lost every race. But yeah. But the preparation phase is really, really key. And that's something that I wanted to encourage you guys in. With every part of your armor, you need to be putting in practice. You need to be doing things to exercise your ability to hold that. So sword of the Spirit is an obvious one. If you're not praying in the Spirit, if you're not exercising your spirit, if you're not putting yourself into situations where you can kind of be challenged, then when it comes to a time of battle, how effective are you going to be with your sword of the Spirit? With your shield of faith, that's the thing that you kind of hold to, your faith in Christ. If you're not exercising it, if you're not practicing with it, if you don't know how to utilize it or move it, how are you going to be when it comes to that time of action when you need to use it? And so there's a whole lot of old proverbs and stuff that in times of war, fathers prepare their sons, all those type of things, and it's a really important part of our Christian journey as well. And so the 3 points of the preparation that I wanted to say is that you need to know your armor, you need to get used to it. The second one is practice and train, do the hard yards, and this is the hardest part of, I feel, any battle is actually the preparation phase. When a battle comes, you're motivated by the need to protect, or you're motivated by the need to succeed in whatever that battle is. But if you haven't done the preparation side of it well, then you're going to be ineffective when it comes to that time. So you need to be doing the hard yards, those things that nobody sees, the behind the scenes things, training, going out for runs, going to the gym. This is just in a physical sense. But you need to be doing all of that so when competition time comes, you're ready. And a lot of these next couple ones, I'm going to refer back to my sport of rugby. It's something I've played with a lot, so I understand it, and hopefully you'll be able to kind of pick up on some of it. But with rugby, there's 4 key periods in our year. We have pre-season, in-season, post-season, and end-season. Those are kind of our 4 periods. We're kind of in pre-season mode at the moment, and the key with pre-season is that it's the hottest time of the year, but you're supposed to be doing the most cardiovascular activity. And this is really just to build your foundation, so by the time the year comes, you're able to engage in all of the physical strength power stuff and not having to worry about your cardiovascular system because you've already built that up. Most people wait until the in-season and then go, oh, I'm not fit enough to play the game, now I have to start doing some cardio. By then it's already too late. You're not fit until the semi-finals are there, and by then it's too late. So preparation, really key. Practice, train, do the hard yards. And then the third one, choose to be disciplined. Don't wait to find motivation. It's a hard one. I know that's something that I've had to learn the hard way too. But if you choose to be disciplined and you make things fit in your schedule, you're not waiting to find time to do it, you make them work, you make them a priority, you're going to be a lot further forward than if you're waiting to find the motivation to do it. Because motivation comes at the worst times. I don't know if you've been watching a movie that's been really inspirational, and then, well, at least I do. I remember watching August Rush for the first time. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's about a kid that picks up a guitar and then he's just amazing. just really amazing. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so cool. I'd love to learn how to play like that. Watched it at nighttime, and so all I was thinking about throughout that evening was, oh, how could I do this? What could I put in place to do this? And I was like, oh, I can start by practicing an hour a day, but I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. You know, you get to tomorrow and things come up, and then that goes, and the further and further you get away from that point of impact, that point where you had that realization you needed to do something, the less and less convicted you are by it. So don't wait for motivation, be disciplined. Okay, let's move on. So the second one after prepare is positioning. And this is a really key one, and something that I feel, we don't do well at, me personally, is positioning. So within rugby you have 15 players, and each one has a different role, each one has a different position. And within the church we are all parts of the body, and we all do different functions. Not all of us can be the pastor, and not all of us can be the music leader or the prayer chain leader or the person that cleans the toilets or anything like that, because we are not necessarily gifted in that sense. Sometimes we are called into those areas or required to do those, but it's about knowing your position and doing that position well. Within our sports team, I'm a hooker, so I'm in the middle of the scrum, and my job is to anchor our scrum. So really, I set the foundation for everybody else. If I set my foundation wrong, and then my props come in and they get their set, and then my locks, and then flankers and 8, when we go into that point of engagement, when we go into that point of action, we falter. And that's on me, because I haven't set the platform right. I've been too far or too close or too far away from our opposition. Okay? We're with me so far? I know this is rugby talk, and I could get into the technicalities of a scrum, but let's not go there. The point here is that in my position, because I set the foundation, what I need to be practicing is how I place my feet, the distance that I'm seeing from opposition to me. I need to understand who my props are and locks are and adjust according to them. And then the other part of it is that I need to be strong in my quads and my hips and my hamstrings, and making sure I've got a good hinge movement. So all of these things are keys to my position. What often happens, though, is that when you've been in a position for a long time, you do it really well. And so you kind of neglect the things you should be practicing, and you choose to take up sprinting or goal kicking. One of the things you'll see when you go to young kids' practices is that they'll all have goal tees out, and they're all kicking the ball over the goalposts, which is great, but that's not their position, that's not their role. And is it helpful to their role? No. They should be practicing line-out throwing, or practicing for their scrums, or practicing how to lift, all of these things here. Same is true for us. We've been given a role within the church, we've been given a role within the body, and we need to function in that role. God will call you into other places. He might have a calling on your life as a pastor or a teacher or a prophet, but you need to start in the serving mode, just being in the place that you're called to be at that present point in time. Have that there and open, and God will see you and move you, and people will do that as well. Okay? God will always bring you into the place that you need to be. You just need to be there working at what you've been called to at that present point in time. Positioning. When we position ourselves well, the church functions well, because we're all doing our roles. Things change, people leave, and positions change. That's the nature of the game, that's the nature of the church. But if we're all trying to be that one person, if we're all trying to be the pastor, nothing gets done. Kapai? You with me so far? Yeah, I know we're getting a little bit tired. It is really hot in here. It's a hot day. Oh, it's not hot? Oh, okay. Well, I'm sweating, so maybe it's just at this height. Not used to this height. So anyway, yes. So preparation, making sure you're doing all of your job, making sure you're doing those little things. Walking through, training, eating well is a big one. I'm just going to jump back to that presentation one, because I just remembered that was one of the key points I wanted to bring up. Here at church, we get given great feeds. Not just physically, but a way to it too, the spiritual side. The word comes out, and we hear it, and we receive it, and we're like, that's such a good word. Amen. Amen? Wednesdays comes. We got 2 services. We got service on Sunday, service on Wednesday. If you're making both, you're getting doubly fed. If you go into music practice on the Wednesdays, we do prayer and we go into worship. It's another way of being fed. If you're doing your hard yards, if you're doing your prayer times, if you're reading the word, you're being fed there too. But what are you doing with what you're eating? Okay, when we're talking about in a physical sense, when we're training people, it's a general concept, but it does make sense. It's how we help people to improve their weight or to lose weight on a basic scale. There's other things involved, but it's called calories in, calories out. Okay, key is however much food you're consuming, if you're wanting to lose weight, you need to be doing more exercise. If you're eating less food and you're wanting to gain weight, you need to be doing less exercise than the amount of food you're eating. Same thing is with our Christian walk as well, is that we're eating a lot. But if we're eating a lot, then we need to be doing a lot. Yeah? Because it means that we've got a greater capacity. We've got, a greater capacity of things to actually pour out and to give to people so that they can be sustained. It's not just for us. But I tend to what we do is that we gather a lot of food and we eat a lot of food and we're sustained, we're good, but we don't do a lot. Do you know what happens then? When you're in a calorie surplus, you get fat. And so we still get Christians that are receiving, But if you're not doing a lot, then you become a risk of being ineffective. Because if you're not doing anything, you're not practicing with your equipment. You're not practicing with your armor. You may not be able to fit your armor when it comes to a time to fight. Okay? So you need to be doing both, eating and feeding. Eating and feeding. Eating, consuming, and then finding a place. It doesn't matter where, positioning. Finding a place that you can function, that you can give, whatever that is. It may not necessarily be here in the church cleaning the toilets or something. It can be out there in the community. It could be in your workplace. But finding a place that you can give what you're receiving. A lot of the knowledge that's in the Bible is practical and can be applied. Like Jesus did in the New Testament with all his parables. He brought biblical teaching and applied it in a practical way and showed it in a practical way. Our faith, our religion isn't meant to be just a theoretical practice, but an actual applied practice. Practical. Kapai? So, preparation, making sure that you're eating well, training well, physically well. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. And then the second one, positioning. Understanding your position, knowing your position inside and out. Find your role and work at it. Do the basics well. So making sure that you train those basics, your prayer time, your worship time, all those things, you put them in place. As a rugby player, there's certain aspects that apply to every player, every position. We have to pass, we have to tackle, we have to be able to run. Those type of things, they're applicable to every player. Same is true for us Christians. Prayer, worship, praise, being part of the fellowship. Another part about positioning, and I don't think I put it up there, is that it's about being part of a team. Within the armor of God that Josh spoke about and that Dad's spoken about, armor was created to take on frontal assaults. But your teammates are there to protect your sides and your back. That's what armor is designed for, is to protect that front so that as you move forward as a group, you're protected. Part of positioning is doing your role and expecting and trusting and having faith that those that are in your team are going to do their role too. And if you're the person that's like, you know what, I'm in the front line here, I don't want to be the front line, I want to be the general at the back. Turn around, start to walk through the ranks, you've created a huge hole, you've exposed the people that were on either side of you. Whereas if you did your role, you would have been a lot more effective, your whole team would be a lot more effective. And that's the importance of positioning, is understanding what your role is, doing the basics well. Okay, the last part that I wanted to bring up is action. And this is where we get to that part. If you've done your preparation well, if you know your position and the role in which you've played, if you're doing your basics well, making sure you're doing everything there well, then when we get to this part, it should be relatively not easy. No action is easy, but you'll be a lot more effective in it. So the points on action is execute the plan and play your game. So within a rugby team, we have a set game plan for each team that we encounter. We have a general game plan, and then we have, if we're playing somebody like Waikanae, they have quite a good forward pack and quite a slow back line, even though it's a strong back line. So we'll play a lot more of a kicking and territorial game, getting their forwards to move around the park and pinning them back in their half. Problem is that sometimes our first five decides he's going to be, Carlos Spencer and run the ball, And we're like, hey, you're supposed to kick it. That's not the game plan. It comes back to positioning, knowing your role, playing the game plan, understanding that, okay, the preparation. But the action side is, trusting your teammates, trust your coach, leave it all on the field. The importance of the preparation phase is that it builds towards your positioning. It equips you so you can do your position well. The importance of positioning is so that you can be with your teammates and function well when it comes to a time of action. And I'm trying to remember whereabouts I got to at this point and where I was supposed to be going for this part. That's where it was. Thank you, Lord. All of these things here, the preparation and understanding your equipment, knowing how to use your weapons, the armor of God, positioning, being positioned along with those that you're in fellowship with, us here in the church today, and those that are out there as well, equip you to take action, to be effective and impactful. But the purpose of your action and the purpose of your impact is not only for the today, but for future. It's generationally. And that comes back to what Trish said. Last week I was talking with one of my work colleagues and we were just talking about something else. But she said something that really resonated with me and kind of applied to what I was talking about today. And it was that they were talking in the context of their tupuna, the people that have gone before. But it was the fact that understanding that we are superhuman almost. And the fact that we are a result of what our forefathers fought for. That we stand here today because of what they have done. Whether where you're standing is a good place or not such a good place, you are a result of their actions. And so when you think about yourself, it shouldn't just be, I am my own isolated person. It should be, wow, I am a result of these people that have gone before. In the Old Testament, when they walked through the Jordan and all of those things, they set up monuments in those spaces so that future generations, when they came past, they were like, do you see that monument there? This is what your grandfather did, or this is what happened at this place, and this is what happened at this place, to give context to that person's life and to encourage them in the future in which they were leading. When we look back at decisions that our forefathers made, it can be just a generation ago, a couple of generations ago. I think Dad spoke on it as well. His decision to become a Christian. Graham's great-great-great-grandfather, great-great-great-great-grandfather to become a Christian, and now your fifth generation or something like that. These people have made a decision. They have done the preparation. They've been in the position. They have actioned something that may not have had a big impact in their life at that current point in time, but has affected the future so much. And so when we're looking at this and going, okay, preparation, doing the hard yards, positioning, making sure we know our role, action, it should be future focused. What are we trying to achieve for those coming, for the future generations of Christians that are going to be coming in, for the next lot of people coming into the church here? That's what our action is for, is to outreach, to encourage others to become a part of the body, to effect change so that the lives of those coming in, the new Christians, have a better opportunity of growing in certain areas. It could be in children's ministry. We didn't have a children's ministry for years, but the impact and the changes and what they're doing in there now is causing a change for future generations. There'll be a children's ministry in 5-10 years that'll be bigger than what it is now. For our music ministry, when I first started, everyone left. And it was just me and I think maybe Ed and Marka, where there was 3 of us. We now have a team of 8, 12, 15. If we're including the music team that's on Wednesday, then we've got about 25 people that are in the team. And that's growth over a long period. But if we hadn't have been prepared and positioned in that role, if we hadn't have taken action and actually turned up every week on a Wednesday, every morning on a Sunday, then we wouldn't have a team here, or we might have a limited team here. And so it's just an encouragement to you guys that your preparation is really important. Your day-to-day, that hard yard stuff, when you're going to home group, when you're preparing for a home group, it's really important. You might not see it at the home group. The home group might go badly. I don't know about many of the people that are here in the church, but we've had some terrible music on a Sunday. Like, really bad. Yeah, see, we've got one person that's been here long enough, and everybody else is like, ah. But the thing is, like, you have to work through that. Those are the hard times. You've got to do that preparation, and you just got to trust that God will be there with you in the positioning of it. So you do your preparation, you position yourself, trust God that God's got you in the right position, and you do your role. You do the basics well. And when the time comes, when that time comes of getting up here on a Sunday morning, going out onto the footy field on the Saturday, whatever it is, when that action time comes, you'll be prepared. You'll be in the best position to be effective and impact change in the future. Amen? Okay, I know that we're getting a little bit long there now, so I'm going to wrap it up. And I know that it's early, but that's okay. I'm just going to check what else I had. Yes, so there's a whakatauki that reads, Tamatu ta ora, tamanoho tamamate. And this whakatauki translates loosely to he who is active lives and he who sits perishes. And that's a really an important part of what we're driving through here today, is that you need to be in this place of preparation, positioning, action, but you need to be taking action as well so that you can then be fed again. You know, you need to be going through that. Those that sit perish, and those, it's just kind of talking about life in general. You know, if you're not active and you're not doing these small things well in your preparatory phase, of the preparation phase, then you're not going to be effective. You're not going to have a long life in the terms of this. There's going to be challenges that come. You might be too weak to face because you haven't been putting in that work, putting in action. And so what's stopping you? This was kind of the question I wanted to ask. I don't feel that we're going to have an altar call today. If you're needing prayer, then please come forward. We've got people that can pray with you. But more so, as we go into, we're just going to finish off with maybe a song or two. More so what I want you to think about is, what is the area in which you're struggling? Is it in the preparation phase? Are you just struggling to be motivated to want to do something? Get up and read your word in the morning. Go to the all-in prayer meetings. Find a home group. Is it something in the preparation phase where you're just struggling with? If it is, identify what that is. Try and remove it. If it's getting up earlier so you can do things, then set your alarm. Set 5 alarms. You know, that's how some people operate. I set an alarm and my body wakes me up 15 minutes before it. But however you operate, if that's the thing that you're struggling with, then do that. Okay? Analyze which the area is. If it's in positioning, if you're wanting to be somewhere else and you're not focused on where you currently are or the area that you've been called to serve in at the moment, change your focus. Identify that this is your area for the moment. Work hard in it. Show yourself as willing. And then allow God to move you to where your heart desire is, if that's where He's called you. And then if it's in the action phase, if you get to this point, you're ready to run on the field, and then you see the other team run out and go, oh, no, they're too big. You start, I'm just going to sit over here on the bench. Trust that God has you in the right position. Yeah? And that's where that positioning is really important. If you're not in the right position and you go out there on the field, that's how you get injured. There's been so many times as a player and also as a referee where I've come up against opposition and they've been ill-trained in the position that they're playing. And especially in the front row, if you don't know that role well, you can have some serious injuries. I've seen a couple of boys carted off to hospital, broken necks, a couple of cracked ribs, all of these things because they didn't know their position well. And so whatever position that you're in, know it well, so that when you come to this time of taking the field, you can be effective and you can impact not only the moment, but also future. Amen? Okay. So I'm going to leave you with that. What's stopping you? And then the last one is be ready. So we're just going to get into a time of worship. Okay? For those of you that need a shoot off, you're more than welcome to. We're going to have some fellowship out there as well. But those are that one question I want to leave you with is that one, okay? Understanding preparation, positioning, and action. But what's stopping you? What's causing you to be ineffective at the moment? Identify it, take it to God, and let Him work on it.